So Chuck, I can honestly give you an answer of where inflammation comes from in 2 words.
Okay.
It is not a mystery anymore. This is what every single one of us needs to hear.
All right, everybody, quick question. If inflammation is causing joint pain, brain fog, fatigue, autoimmune diseases, why don't most doctors know where it actually comes from? Because today on the Gut Insiders, Dr. B is going to argue that inflammation isn't bad luck. It isn't just getting older. Heck, it isn't even inevitable. It has a starting point. It starts somewhere very specific. And once you see it, you can't unsee it. So, if you are new here, this is the show where we break down gut health, microbiome science, and what your body is really trying to tell you without the nonsense. I'm your host with the patient perspective, Chuck Carroll, and with me is gastroenterologist, New York Times bestselling author, and the man who somehow made farts educational, Dr. Will Bulsiewicz. What's up, man?
I still can't believe that episode worked as well as it did. And I honestly can't believe that on the very first episode of the Gut Insiders, I dropped the word arse.
You did multiple times, if I'm not mistaken. But listen, here's the God's honest truth about it. If you can explain farts, man, you can explain anything. And today we're going even bigger than gas. We're talking about inflammation. Everybody's talking about it. It's kind of become a buzzword, but few people understand what it actually is.
Yeah, no, and it's an important word, right? I mean, we're going from a small problem to the biggest of big problems. And, inflammation has been this vague, scary word, but when you understand where it actually comes from, you realize it's not mysterious at all. We have the ability to demystify it, Chuck.
And that's exactly what we're going to be doing today. We're pulling back that curtain, finding out what inflammation really is, why it sticks around, and what your gut has to do with it. So let me ask you this, just hypothetical question. If I was to put on my old reporter hat and do a man on the street style interview with somebody, and I asked, where does inflammation actually come from? What do you think most people would say?
Honestly, they'd probably say aging, stress, genetics that you were born with, bad luck. Honestly. And if you asked me that question 10 years ago, I would have given you a long, meandering answer that didn't really explain anything, even though I was fully trained as a medical doctor.
Wait. Even you, like, I think inflammation in the gut, like, really have been going hand in hand for a lot longer. Like, it's kind of blowing my mind right now that this is something you didn't even understand.
Yeah, I mean, Chuck, I went to medical school. I went through 8 years of training after medical school. I was already in practice treating people with chronic inflammatory health conditions. But if you came up to me and you said to me, hey, Dr. B, where does inflammation come from? I would have probably said something like, look, as we get older, our bodies become more inflamed. And like, clearly it's worse if you sit on the couch and eat bonbons all day.
That's not really satisfying, man.
No, but that's kind of like, it's crazy to imagine that that was my understanding of inflammation, being a fully trained medical doctor, actually treating people with these chronic inflammatory health conditions. And, I mean, honestly, it's vague. It doesn't give people a clear target. It doesn't tell you how to address it. But here's the good news, Chuck. Like, a lot has changed. And this is like something I see as tremendously important. Over the last 6 years, and we're talking after I finished writing Fiber Fueled, I have learned so much, and I've been deep diving into the science, and I've realized something.
No, here it comes. Here it comes. Wait for it.
Okay, so Chuck, I can honestly give you an answer of where inflammation comes from in 2 words.
Okay.
The gut.
I mean, that's a pretty big claim, dude. The gut. 2 words sums it up.
2 words sums it up. And we in this episode are going to fully unpack this. It is not a mystery anymore. This is the answer. This is what every single one of us needs to hear.
All right. I mean, obviously you're the gut guy. And I think that we do need to unpack this. I mean, let me throw you kind of a little bit of a curveball question here. Like, is it troublesome now that you've begun to understand inflammation and its causes, that people are throwing this around and they don't fully understand what it means?
I mean, look, if you go into the internet, you're going to find conversations that aren't necessarily evidence informed. That's just reality, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So ultimately, we have a responsibility to identify who are our trusted experts, right? Where are our sources of truth? And I'm here today having deep dived into this topic for several years. I'm excited. I'm eager to basically share what I've learned, where inflammation is not this nebulous, archaic concept that we have no clue what's going on there. There is an answer to what's going on. Again, I said it, the gut. I'm not taking it back. And the beauty of it, Chuck, is there's an opportunity there in the gut. This is where optimism lives. This is where hope lives. This is where we can change things. This is where how you feel today doesn't mean this is how you feel tomorrow.
Yeah.
That's what I'm talking about.
Yeah, man. I love that. And so let's dive in, man. Let's start unpacking this. True or false, when we talk about inflammation, there's another term that comes up a lot, and that's a term called leaky gut. Those two things kind of go hand in hand as well. So let's let's slow this down. Let's start to unpack it. So when people hear the phrase leaky gut, I mean, half of folks like start to roll their eyes. I think part of that may be because they don't understand what that means either.
Yeah, I mean, the term does get overused. There's things that are said on the internet around these terms leaky gut that are not true. But I think that we should take a step back. Let's reset and let's talk about what this actually means in plain English. Your gut lining, it is a selective barrier. Okay, so basically it's this single layer of cells, and its job is to let the good stuff through. So, like nutrients, like vitamins and amino acids. But at the same time, it basically needs to like keep the bad stuff out. So this would be pathogens, bacterial toxins. We can't let that across the gut barrier because then it could get into the bloodstream and that can create serious issues. So
Does that?
the gut lining has a really important job.
It does. Like you're kind of painting the picture. It makes me think of like TSA, right? Airport security. You're going through, they're looking at everything. They're going to kick some stuff out. They're going to kick certain people out of line. They're going to take stuff out of the bag. And then the rest of the good stuff gets to go through.
Yeah, so when the gut barrier is working well, the immune cells, they stay calm. And Chuck, it's kind of like having a TSA, right? And then having airport security that's on the other side, right? The airport security, they're there, they're doing their job, and they don't have to do anything as long as the security checkpoint does this job and doesn't let anything bad through. The problem is that the gut barrier can lose its capacity to do its job, and this can happen when it's damaged or it's been put under stress. And when that happens, like this would be like an overwhelmed TSA. Bacterial fragments can slip through. Things that weren't supposed to get across, they get across, right? And this is what we would call leaky gut, but I might call it increased intestinal permeability. And what I'm talking about getting across right now when I say bacterial fragments is something very specific called lipopolysaccharide or LPS. And this is important, Chuck, because LPS and the human immune system have been locked in an evolutionary arms race for hundreds of millions of years. And just to contextualize that, we as humans, we have only existed for about 3 million years. What I'm saying is that basically there are immune cells and there's LPS, and they've been fighting each other for much longer than we have existed as humans.
Wow.
Our immune system is hardwired even before birth to
Wow.
recognize, our immune system is taught to recognize LPS as a threat. That is a bad thing, and it's going to respond aggressively when it sees it outside the gut. And we know just how powerful this signal is in humans because, like, for example, Chuck, they did a controlled clinical study where researchers they actually injected this LPS in a purified form into the bloodstream of healthy volunteers. And here's what happened. Within hours, their inflammatory markers like interleukin 6 and tumor necrosis factor alpha rose sharply, right? So you're like basically triggering inflammation. But here's the part that like really caught my attention in this study is that inflammation, so basically you inject this LPS, inflammation skyrockets, and then within hours, their metabolism starts to collapse. Insulin sensitivity drops by about 35%. That's not diabetes yet. But basically, this is how you get to diabetes. You've jacked up the metabolism. The takeaway is that by simply exposing the bloodstream to this LPS, even briefly, that's enough to create significant inflammation and metabolic disruption, even in people who are totally healthy. But in everyday life, LPS, it doesn't come from injections. It comes from the gut because LPS is basically this armor that covers bacteria like E. coli, Salmonella, Shigella. And when that exposure from the gut is small but constant, the immune system never gets to stand down.
And that then, all of that creates inflammation.
Exactly. And so here's the picture that I want you and everyone else who's with us to hold on to. Your gut is about 20 to 25 feet long. It is lined by a single layer of cells. The surface area of what we're talking about lining your intestines is the size of a small apartment. And every single cell matters. When the barrier holds and does its job, the immune system stays quiet. But when it falters, LPS can cross, and every single crossing along that entire surface area on a microscopic cellular level, every single crossing triggers an immune response against this ancient enemy. So when you repeat this time and time and time, that's what we call chronic low grade inflammation.
All right. So honestly, here's where I get confused. I mean, aside from all of the big medical words that some of them sounded downright sinister to me, here's where I do get confused. Um, Inflammation clearly, as you're pointing out, starts in the gut, but then why wouldn't it just stop once people start to eat better?
You've just exposed the trap. You just exposed the trap.
Oh,
This is what we would call the inflammation trap because it's important to understand inflammation doesn't just come from gut damage, it actually creates gut damage.
so is that kind of like a snowball effect where it just kind of feeds itself, it builds on itself?
Yeah, exactly. And this isn't just a theory. We actually see this in human research. So, for example, Chuck, a study that was published in Nature Microbiology, this is a highly prestigious journal, showed that when the gut is inflamed, the microbiome itself changes in a really important way.
So what kind of a change are we talking about here?
All right. So, like in this inflamed environment, you have beneficial microbes. These are the fiber loving ones. They are the ones that produce butyrate, which are the short chain fatty acids that are powerfully anti inflammatory. And by the way, butyrate is what repairs and restores the gut barrier. But in the inflamed environment, those beneficial bacteria, they actually stop doing the job that we rely on them for. They are forced to shift into survival mode. Basically, they either fall off or they go dormant and they stop functioning. They produce less butyrate. They are unable to support the gut microbiome, which is trying to heal. Like basically, what's happening with these microbes when they're in the context of inflammation, it's a little bit like what happens to us when we're sick. So, like, I don't know about you, Chuck, but when I get sick, I'm a shell of the man that I am when I'm feeling strong and healthy.
I think pretty much everyone is, despite what it, whatever they try to tell you. But it sounds like what you're saying is those microbes, those are the ones that really help to keep that barrier intact.
Exactly. So you need healthy microbes doing their job to support and nurture the gut barrier to protect the immune system. But the problem is that you create inflammation with the immune system, which ultimately affects the microbes, which leads to breakdown of the gut barrier, which creates more inflammation. That is the inflammation trap.
Mm, mm. And that just it sounds brutal to me, man. It's just more inflammation piled on more inflammation piled on more inflammation. Does not sound like a lot of fun to me.
It is brutal. And it also explains things that I see from people all the time, which is that they might say, I'm eating healthy, but I still feel like I'm inflamed. So, like, the problem is they're trying to rebuild a house while the foundation is still cracking. You have to calm inflammation and restore the microbiome at the same time. Otherwise, this loop keeps running.
All right, man. Well, let's talk about this because I think that there's probably a lot of people watching this right now who like literally have their minds blown. Like I mean, I have been doing all the right things. I've been eating this really ultra clean diet and I still feel like garbage every single day. So let's get practical about this, right? Give us a list. Like how would somebody be able to identify whether or not they're actually stuck in this loop?
Real quick, before we jump into that, Chuck, I want to hear from you. Like, how are you responding to what you're hearing right now? Have you experienced anything like this?
Very much so. I mean, I've been open with my struggles, and I have a complex case, which honestly is why I'm so excited to do this show with you. Beyond the fact that you and I, we're just friends, and this is fun, but it's like it's helping me understand what's been going on with me for the past 3 years. And to be perfectly honest with you, like I have felt like a fraud because of the success of the other show and my notoriety in the plant based space. And yet, having struggled silently for 2 out of those 3 years with just massive amounts of inflammation and digestive issues and brain fog and fatigue and even joint pain and it's just been sickening, to be perfectly honest with you.
Yeah, gosh, I'm sorry. I mean, obviously, as a friend, you and I have had many conversations about this, and it pains me to see my friends struggling with the things that you've been dealing with. Yet at the same time, I'm very proud of you because not only are you perseverant in your approach, and resilient, but you also have the audacity and the gall to turn to the public and basically say, "Hey, look, I don't know if I can help you with my story, but if I can, I will. So here it is."
And brother, I mean that has been the most refreshing part of this is like if you believe in a purpose-driven life, I feel like I was given this illness because of my platform. And I've heard from hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people, honest to God, who have similar crazy symptoms that doctors are struggling to diagnose. And it seems like no matter what it is they try, they just can't seem to hammer it down. And let me put this into perspective for you. Like, I am seeing the top doctors in the country. I'm being treated right now at the Mayo Clinic, and it has still taken a very long time to finally get to the point where we think that we have a good idea of what's going on and have a clear path forward for treatment. And these cases can be ultra complex, and so hopefully in a future episode we can really start to unpack everything that's going on. I don't want to make this episode about me, but when it comes to the gut and inflammation, as a gastroenterologist, you guys have to know how complicated a lot of these cases actually can be.
Yeah. Um, they are. And solutions aren't necessarily simple and straightforward, but part of what we have the ability to do is to talk through these types of stories here on the Gut Insiders podcast because there's going to be people who are listening. They're going to take away a moment, and it may not be something that you and I even realize how important it is for them.
Yeah.
And it's this aha moment, and they're like, there it is. That's the thing I was searching for. That's what I needed to hear. And it changes everything. So we're going to continue to create aha moments together, my brother. And I do appreciate you um, being willing to come forward and share generously and openly on a topic that I have to imagine it's not so easy to discuss. So,
It's
anyway,
not.
all right.
It's not. Let's not get all, let's not start the waterworks and stuff, but I appreciate everything that you've done for me. But let's give back to the people. That's what
Yeah,
we
yeah,
are, men of the people, brother. So let's talk about this inflammation trap and
yeah.
and how somebody might like try to discern whether or not they're stuck in this loop.
Yeah. So Chuck, I'm gonna give you what I see as 5 signs of the inflammation trap. Okay. Now you're not necessarily gonna say yes to all 5, but you don't need to. You're not gonna have all 5 at the same time. These are not diagnoses. These are clues that your body is stuck in this loop, this vicious cycle, right? That we're calling the inflammation trap.
Mm.
And as I go through these 5, Chuck, I would love to hear from you, your thoughts. But at the same time, right now, I'm turning to our listeners who are at home, engaging with us. And I just want you, the listener, to consider in your own life, does this fit you? You can shout at us. You can shout at us. You can also DM us, right, through social media, or you can drop comments down below and tell us how these specific things fit in your own life. Okay. So, but Chuck, because I have you here, I'm going to direct this towards you.
Yes, sir.
All right, cool. So the first that I would say is you eat clean, but you still feel like trash. You still feel fatigued. You still feel inflamed. Have you experienced that, Chuck?
To this day, my friend, to
Yeah.
this very day, I can eat something, as healthy as a spinach and arugula salad with tomatoes, maybe a little bit of sliced avocado, super clean, a little balsamic on there, like really low fat, high, nutrient density. And I will walk away feeling like garbage, my friend.
Yes. So we have, in a way, everything that you just described as your diet is a beautiful, wonderful diet. Unfortunately, the problem is that is not sufficient for us to break this loop, break the inflammation trap, right?
Yep.
So you should absolutely do what you are describing. Maybe in some cases, modifications become required. I'm not trying to say that like it's always just pure plants and that's it.
Yeah.
But the point from my perspective though is that clearly there's more. Clearly there is something more that needs to be fulfilled in order to get you where we want you to go.
Yep.
All right. The second thing I would say is that symptoms can jump throughout the body, right? So we think of the body as like as like systems, right? Where it's like I'm a gastroenterologist, I deal with the gut, a cardiologist deals with the heart, a rheumatologist deals with joints, right? It could be your gut one month, it could be your joints the next. Have you felt symptoms jumping around?
Yeah, man. And it was really early on in my experience when I was actually going to an allergist, like saying, well, maybe this is an allergy thing. And he's like, oh, man, you've got a case of the all overs. So it's like one day, I'll have like really intense heartburn. The next day, it's like wicked bad bloating. The day after that, it's like this crazy, like, and this is the weirdest one, like almost a neurologic thing where it's like brain fog, but on steroids, where it's brain fog but also the feeling of almost being, like, drunk or stoned. It's like you've had too much cold medicine. It's like you're there, but you're not there, and very rarely do the symptoms overlap. It's like you have one or the other. It's the craziest damn thing.
Yeah. So, again, you go to five different doctors for those symptoms that you just described. They would give you five different diagnoses and provide five different medications. But what would be missing is that they're all tied back to the same story, right? Which is inflammation.
Mm,
And so these are different manifestations of inflammation. They're affecting different systems. You have one body. Your body doesn't care that there's different doctors for different specialties. The body doesn't care, right?
right,
It's one body. And that
right.
one body, by the way, is responsive also to your environment. So you are very integrated into your environment, which
Yeah.
actually is sort of like the point for my number three, which is that like things that are happening beyond just what's on the plate, like stress in our life, right? Or disrupted sleep, you're not sleeping well, make things worse.
Yeah. 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 That's for daggone sure. And it's interesting that right before I got sick, that was potentially the most stressful period of my entire life. So much going on behind the scenes. Number one, the career was really flourishing and there's a lot of stress that comes from trying to be at the top of your game. But number two, like with my family, there was just so much going on um, that we don't have to unpack here. But obviously, stressed out didn't do me any good. But when we're stressed, at least for me, my reaction was not to sleep more and shut down. My reaction was actually to sleep less and to keep pushing and try to get through. And that really only made everything worse. And certainly there's a lot of stress with being chronically ill. And so I know that if I'm in a stressful situation now for whatever reason, or I don't get a good night's sleep, then I'm going to feel even worse the next day. Like those are just cold, hard facts, man.
Yeah. So, really, what we're kind of talking about here is the concept of resilience. So, when your body is in a position of strength, then there's a resilience that naturally exists where you could deal with stress and you're okay. You can
Yeah.
deal with a bad night's rest and you're okay, right? And that's not enough to totally upend you. But the problem is that when the system is already broken down and weak and failing, it's going to fail harder. It's going to
Mm,
fail harder. There's nothing left to give. It's already broken down,
mm.
right? So, and that is the issue that we run into where these kinds of perturbations, stress, poor sleep, whatever it might be, are enough to kind of tip you over the edge. By the way, this is quite heavily covered in chapter 6 of my new book about circadian rhythm, and chapter 8, which is about the brain gut connection. So just shouting that out because like we could, we're not going to do that today, but we could double click and deep dive those topics even further, by the way, because there is an explanation for why that's happening.
I think we
So
should. I think we
yeah.
should.
Yeah. Well, okay. So if I'm going to give you one word and then we can pick this up in another conversation later on, Chuck.
Yeah.
The one word is cortisol. So
Mm,
cortisol is what explains the poor sleep because you're stressed out. Cortisol is what explains how stress ultimately impacts your body in a negative way.
yeah. And
So
and my doctors have said that like I'm basically chronically stuck in fight or flight mode. And that's why, it's weird, man. I don't want to do the deep dive now, but there's so much I want to say. But I'll just leave it at this. They explained to me that even if I sleep for 8 hours, it's not quality sleep. And because of that, your body's still not able to rejuvenate, recover, and rebound just because you're stressed out, even when you're asleep.
fight or flight mode is synonymous with the term sympathetic activation or sympathetic overdrive. That is your autonomic nervous system, right? Your
Yep. Yep.
body is basically switched on and unable to go into rest mode, digest mode, recovery mode. That's the problem is when you're living in that space, there's consequences. So,
Yeah.
and that's basically what's happening there, Chuck. We,
Yeah.
we'll deep dive that in another episode. But
Yes, sir.
all right, here's another one for you. Have you ever had it where you react, like you have foods that you used to be able to tolerate and all of a sudden you find that you can't anymore?
Oh, I'll give you one. Kimchi. I love kimchi, but I cannot do it. Even the smallest amount now bloats me to the bejeebers, bro.
Well, to the bejeebers doesn't sound very good, but I I
Dude,
hate to hear
I
that.
I mean, like the bejeebers is like I got a good like 6, 7 month pregnant belly happening, man. Like it's
That sounds like a
crazy.
place in Stranger Things where people don't want to go. You don't want to find yourself in the bejeebers. So,
The bejeeber,
that's
aka
a
the
that's
upside down, you
yeah.
know? Yeah.
That's a clean way of saying something really dirty. Almost it sounds like, you
I
know.
mean, bro, yeah. If I
I'll have
ever
to
write a
teach my
book,
kids.
yeah, if I ever write a book, it's not gonna be filled with words like bejeebers. I'm putting it all out there. It's gonna
No,
be like
it's gonna be
R17 in
shorter,
the book.
about 4 letters,
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
right? But you know what? I think I'm gonna teach my kids that Uncle Chuck says the bejeebers is a good word, and I think it's okay. That's a good clean word to use that says the same
Bejeebers.
thing.
Yeah.
Yes.
All right. So
All right.
yeah,
Okay,
I miss
cool.
my kimchi.
But the point here though is that like you used to tolerate these foods, now you're struggling with these foods. Your gut microbiome has changed, right? The inflammation trap, where basically the inflammation has now disrupted your microbiome, and because your microbiome is disrupted, it's struggling to do its job, which is to help you to process and digest your food.
Yeah.
That's what's
Yeah.
happening there. All right.
All right.
Uh,
Number 5.
last but not least, have you ever experienced this where like you improve ever so briefly and then you fall right back in and like relapse?
That's a loop in itself right there, man. I'll actually every so often have a string of like 2 or 3 days where I almost feel normal again, and then it's just like bam, you get hit by a truck. Again, you get run over, and the cycle just repeats itself.
Okay, so this gets back to this concept of resilience that I was discussing a moment ago, which is that like basically you improve briefly. Basically, what this means is that you're teetering on the edge. It's like a tipping point, and you just ever so slightly tipped it in your favor and started to recover, and then boom, the thing knocks you over again, and you're right back to where you started. Right. So there's a vulnerability that's there. So ultimately, we have to disrupt the cycle, and we have to not only repair, we have to repair to the point that it is strong, it is resilient, and it's not going to break down so quickly and easily. So, but the message here to you. So, Chuck, you're 5 for 5 on these. That's not something that I want to hear. I hate that.
I mean, I wish it
And
was baseball and I was headed for the Hall of Fame, but yeah,
so, well, we're gonna work on making this over 5, right? Which won't get you in the Hall of Fame of baseball, but it will get you a Hall of Fame in terms of your health.
I'll take
Um,
it.
we're gonna work on that, and but also for the listeners at home, like we're not like we're not trying to be 5 for 5 here. We want you to be as few as possible. But for many of you, I would imagine that what you're hearing is helping you to understand your body and things that have happened. And so and that's what really matters. That's what the show is really all about. So and it doesn't mean that you're broken, right? It just means that we haven't fully reset your system.
All right. Well, big question for you then, man. How do we begin to break this loop?
Basically, what you want to do is if we could just repair the gut barrier, right? If you could repair the gut barrier, then what's going to happen is you're going to calm the immune system and simultaneously protect your microbiome, right? You need to disentangle there. Like basically, the inflammation is creating a microbiome problem, and then the microbiome problem is creating inflammation,
Hmm.
right? And if we could just repair the barrier that's in between them, they will manage themselves, they will calm down, and they will be okay.
Yeah.
So, some of the things that I um, think are important are like number one, we want to eat the proper food, right? What does that look like? Forget dietary labels. Do they serve a purpose? Sure. Vegan, vegetarian, Mediterranean, pescatarian, plant based. Do they serve a purpose? Sure. Do they create more stress than they're worth? Yes. Do they actually define a healthy diet? No. Here's what I said. Like truly. Because you can take any dietary concept and make it healthy or make it trash. Chuck, what matters is quality.
Mm.
If you eat quality, you're going to be in a good spot. I have identified what I call the four workhorses of plant powered nutrition that if you get these four things, you have everything that you need for an anti-inflammatory diet, right? And it
Lay it
doesn't
out.
matter what you call it.
Lay it out, man. What are they?
Number one, what's my favorite nutrient, Chuck?
Coffee.
Darn
Fiber,
it.
bro.
Darn it.
I
Darn it.
had
You
to.
got me. You got me.
A
Oh,
fiber,
darn.
man. I know for a fact, like in all seriousness, man, you're a
This is the
huge
problem
fiber
when you
fan.
do a podcast with a very, very close friend is they know you so well that they can pull your pants down on the YouTube. All right? That ain't
No,
right,
man.
Chuck. I'm a
Hey,
nice guy to you, Chuck.
I love you too, brother.
All
But
right, brother.
I mean, look,
It's
I'm sitting
fiber.
here talking, having a cup of coffee with you, but it is
Well,
fiber. Like
your and
no joke.
your coffee has fiber in it. That's
It does
the
indeed, sir.
interesting thing. So,
Yeah.
that's part of what makes it healthy,
Yeah,
right?
man.
So, fiber is number 1. The second thing you'll find in that cup of coffee are polyphenols. So, polyphenols are responsible for the colors of our food. And believe it or not, coffee is the number 1 source of polyphenols in the American diet, which is crazy. It shouldn't be. It
Mhm.
shouldn't be, but it is.
Mm.
And so, I mean, I love a good cup of coffee, but like we should be eating more colorful food. That's the bottom line,
Right.
right? So, the third thing is healthy fat. And by healthy fat, I'm referring to the fat that exists in avocados and nuts and seeds and extra virgin olive oil. And those are also the long chain omega-3 fats that exist in fish and shellfish. And like, ultimately, we may have our ethical leanings, and that's important, but we also need to be clear on what are healthy choices. Healthy choices include healthy fats. And so those are some of the options that we have right there,
Yeah.
right? And you just got to choose what works best for you.
Healthy fats should be another episode unto its own in the future because there's certainly a lot to unpack there too.
Yeah, we could dig into that. I mean, like from my perspective, I don't believe that it's fair to vilify any macronutrient. So whether we're talking about protein, carbohydrates, or fats, there are good ones, there are bad ones. If you focus on good ones, you have improved the quality of your diet and you will be healthy as a result of that. Period. End of
Yeah.
story.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Number 4, the one that's missing, even in people who have a healthy diet and they think their diet is amazing and they're very proud of themselves, but you're missing this one. Let's be honest. It's fermented food.
Hmm.
So, and that's not just kimchi. There's lots of choices, right? So, and that includes, of course, sauerkraut, but also pickles and kombucha and water kefir. And if you consume dairy products, it would include yogurt, like Greek yogurt, or it would include kefir. And it also includes tempeh and miso and sourdough bread. Like these are all wonderful things. We need more of that.
I'm a big fan of, at least for me, the non-dairy stuff. Like big fan. I often forget that pickles would fall into that category. I still enjoy a good dill pickle, man. Like nothing beats that on a hot day.
Yeah. So you just got to make sure that it's like actually a fermented pickle because I'm talking about fermented. And so, and the key here is that if the number 1 or 2 ingredient is vinegar, that's pickled in the sense that you take cucumbers, you pour vinegar over the top, you got your pickle. That's the end of the story.
All right.
Whereas, right, kind of like pickled onions, like if you pour, I mean, they're delicious. Don't get me
No, they're not.
wrong.
No, I'm not an onion guy at all. That's a debate for another day. But if you say so.
That's kind of that one kind of caught me off guard there, Chuck.
What, the fact that I don't like onions? I've been on the record about that for a very long
Any
time.
any onions? Any
Any,
onions?
doesn't matter. Vidalia, red,
Raw,
raw,
cooked. You don't like when they get sweet?
no, 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 no. I
Delicious
don't
sweet
understand.
onions?
I don't understand people's obsession with the damn onion. I don't understand it. Like, and people put that on everything. It's like hot sauce. Like, no, no. Like your salad does not need an onion.
Well,
Hard
I suppose the one thing is that we did discuss during the fart episode that onions are a source of sulfur compounds that make your farts smell. So, what you have just announced to the international public is that your farts must smell like petunias, Chuck.
They do. They do indeed. Yeah.
And no comments from over here. I love
No.
onions though.
All right, man. Let's get back to it. So
All right.
those are the
All right.
things.
So those are
Man.
the 4. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So, but like, it's important also for people to hear that nutrition isn't the only thing that matters for our health. So, like, I think that there are opportunities for healing that exist in many places. So, one of them is reestablishing rhythm within our life, right? And like, if I could use one word, the word would be consistency. Create patterns. So, have a morning routine, have an evening routine, try to be consistent with your meal times. If you do that, you are ahead of 99% of people because 99% of us, close to 100%, life is archaic. We're not thinking about these things, but our body wants to know what we're going to do and when we're going to do it. And if you are consistent with the timing of things, that natural rhythm on a day-to-day basis will be rewarded because your body will know, hey, Dr. B likes to do this at this time. Chuck likes to do this at this time. And it will step up to meet the moment to support you and help you do it best.
And that, I mean, again, like that's an episode unto itself. Is like, how do you get into these rhythms? I mean, like life can be so chaotic, and I think it takes a lot of discipline to get there. Even though, as you're going to continue to explain here, I'm sure this comes with tremendous upside if you're able to accomplish that.
Okay. Tremendous upside. Chuck, all of these things that we're discussing today, I'm going to put this out. I'm going to put this out to the people. You should feel the difference. Because if there's inflammation, you have been feeling that, the fatigue, the brain fog, the difficulty concentrating, the poor mood or feeling down or anxious, the skin changes, the gut symptoms, the joint symptoms, the poor recovery, the poor exercise. What I've just offered is you will feel the difference. So, what's one way you asked me like, okay, so how do we establish rhythm? Right?
Yeah.
Well, it's very easy for me to sit here and be like, oh, well, if you literally add nothing or subtract anything and you literally just do everything consistently at the same time every day, you've done that. Okay, cool. Yeah, you should try to do that if you can.
Yeah.
Here's what I would propose. And this, by the way, has been life-changing in my own life and become a non-negotiable. Create a 1-hour morning routine. Create a 1-hour evening routine. And acknowledge in that 1-hour morning routine the importance of exposure to light. In a perfect world, I get you outside within the first hour that you're awake. Now, this time of year, I get it. Because most of our listeners are not in the Southern Hemisphere. By the way, Australia, I love you. I love you. But most people are in the Northern Hemisphere where it's cold and it's dark. If you can't get outside, then get a light with 10,000 lux and turn it on when you wake up immediately. All right. And if you do this, you get that light exposure in a perfect world outside. I promise you, you will find that you have more energy, you have more focus, you have more cognitive endurance that day. That night, you will get tired about 14 hours after whatever time it was that you saw the light. So take that time, call it 7 a.m., add 14. Okay, now it's 9 p.m. Guess what? You're feeling sleepy around 9 p.m. You're ready to go to bed within an hour there. That's because you set yourself up because you told your body when the day starts. So now it knows when the day ends. And within a matter of days, there's a reason why light therapy is the preferred treatment for seasonal affective disorder, where your mood is affected by the fact that you don't get light. Within a number of days, your mood will improve too. So, what I'm saying to everyone is like, you will feel the difference if you get that morning light. And then your evening routine, prioritize sleep. It's important. Be consistent with your bedtime. Don't be all over the place. Choose a time. Try to do it plus or minus 30 minutes of that time. All right. When you feel tired, it's time to go down. And the last thing to keep in mind is you want to avoid light in the evening. So most of us are doing unnatural things like holding devices this far away from our face while we watch our television or we have our laptop and we're hacking away. I mean, as I was last night, Chuck, but nonetheless, right? And it's going to disrupt your sleep. It will drop your melatonin levels by 30%.
Even if you put it into that, you take the blue light off of it or whatever, they've got the nighttime setting on here. Does that help? Is there any scientific research to back that? Do you know?
It helps. It helps. The other thing you could do is you could get blue light blocking glasses. Those help too. But in a perfect world, if you go back to when our grandparents lived, or frankly, not even that long ago, these things didn't even exist,
Right.
right? So, and now here we are, and all it is light exposure, and that light exposure is disrupting our sleep, and then we're confused of why we don't get a good night's rest. I just told you why.
Let
So,
yeah, well, let me ask you this. We've also talked today a lot about the nervous system, man. So it's like for me, I'm having a real hard time activating the parasympathetic nervous system, man. But I know that that's something that you actually talk about quite a bit as well. So what are some things that we might try to calm the system down there?
right. So you said that. Remind me of the exact language you used. Didn't you say that your body was too activated, something like this?
Stuck in fight or flight mode.
Stuck in fight or flight mode, which
Yeah,
is basically synonymous with sympathetic overdrive,
yeah,
right? And that is basically your autonomic nervous system that like reacts. And but the problem is that's sacrificing your gut health in the process. And when you sacrifice the gut health, it creates inflammation,
yeah.
right? It feeds into the inflammation trap. So what we want to do is take the foot off of the accelerator and gently place it on the brake and slow it down and put ourselves into a position of safety. Because when you feel safe, the body is able to actually recover, right? You're able to actually digest your food. You're actually resting for real, right? Because you're not activated.
Yeah,
So some of the strategies, there's many, but like breath work, so like diaphragmatic breathing, which I believe is something that you were taught,
absolutely.
right? Meditation, prayer, going into the sauna, yoga, zone 2 cardio, right? That means like basically enough exercise to get your heart rate up and make it hard for you to sing, right? But enough that you could still talk.
I know, like, even just going on the treadmill, slight incline, going about 3.5, 4 miles an hour, just a walk. Um, when I do that consistently, I tend to feel better, right? That believe it or not, calms the body down by stressing it just that little bit. That really helps. And the breath work, man, more than anything, has been so powerful, man. I'll tell you a quick story before we move on. Being at the Mayo Clinic and on the elevator there with somebody who's, clearly a sports fan. He's got on a Steelers hat, a Steelers jersey, and he's like, "Man, I came here for gut issues." And they're like telling me, to try this breathing stuff. And he's talking to his wife, and I was trying not to eavesdrop, but I turned to the guy. I was like, "Look, dude, I used to cover the NFL for a living. Like, I get where you're at, and I know that mentality. But trust me, bro. Like, just drop the macho guard for a second and give it a try. and it's going to help you. It's not going to cure you all the way, but it's going to help you a good 25 to 30%, if not more in the moment. So just like give it a try. And like the way that he looked at me, he was like really grateful, to be given that advice, man. So I feel very strongly about the breath work, man. Very, very strongly.
Well, he needed to hear that, right? He needed to
Yeah.
hear that, and I think that, like, it sort of brings us back to a core. So we've just kinda placed a whole bunch of tools on the table, right? So to the listeners at home, you can go and you can select which of those tools are the ones that you want to pick up and introduce into your own life. But the message that you just delivered to that gentleman that he needed to hear is that small choices can lead to massive results, that you don't need to look for the extreme choice.
Mm.
That you don't need to make, like, to use a sports analogy, you don't need to throw a Hail Mary, right? So forget the extreme cleanses, forget the deprivation cycles, forget the things that seem like, oh, I'm gonna try to fix everything in 30 days. Take the small choice, take the small win, lean into it, make it a healthy habit, and then stack on top of that. This is how you build towards health. It's not about perfection, it's about creating conditions where the gut and the immune system can basically cool off and then ultimately do their job much better.
All right, man. Well, real talk again, as we kind of wind down a little bit. Oftentimes, the hardest step is the first step because nobody really knows how the heck to start anything. And so, I guess my question to you is, where should we be starting, man?
Look, we've been having this conversation and like I've shared some of the strategies that exist. Obviously, this isn't all of them, but the bottom line is that we want to repair and restore the gut barrier, right? That's what the conclusion that we've come to. And this is exactly why I wrote my new book, Plant Powered Plus, right? Where basically by repairing everything is evidence based, focused on repairing and restoring the gut barrier, and that breaks the inflammation loop. So this book, it gives you the tools that you need, the food, like what to eat, the routines, the science, and it's all bundled into a clear three-phase protocol that makes it approachable, manageable, and not overwhelming. But the truth is, like, whether or not you pick up my book, that's not actually the main message today. What I really want you to hear is this: the gut and the immune system are deeply intertwined. We want to make them healthier. We have to support both with nourishing food, with consistent daily rhythms, and with enough time to rest and digest.
Oh, I love that, bro. I'm putting into action a lot of what we talked about. So bring us home, my man. Bring us home, Dr. B.
So, the big takeaway for today's episode is that inflammation is not random. It also is not inevitable, and it isn't even mysterious. In most people, this is a problem that starts at the gut barrier. When you protect the barrier, everything downstream improves.
Inflammation isn't just something that happens to you.
No, it's something your body is responding to, but it is not inevitable. You can change the signals coming from the gut. And when you do, you don't just quiet inflammation, you break the loop. In fact, you can actually create the opposite, Chuck, which is a rising loop of health, where the microbes support the gut barrier, creating safe spaces for both the microbes and the immune cells. That's not an inflammation trap, that's resilience.
Yeah, brother. Well, look, man, I appreciate you. Seriously, I've learned a ton today. So let's just go ahead and wrap all this up. Put a bow on this episode of the Gut Insiders. And so, you who's watching and listening right now, if this helped you understand your body in a new way, hit like, subscribe, and share it with somebody who needs clarity without all of the confusion. And we will see you next time, my friends.
Thanks, everyone.